When did Denyo comprehend the 6th level intermediate Earth concept? Duan Ling Tian stared at the 185 ancient horned dragon silhouettes above Huang Denyo's head, momentarily stunned that he wasn't surprised that Huang Denyo's cultivation had broken through to the void prying stage. 6th level. After all, like him, Huang Denyo had also consumed a Hanyuan fruit, and its medicinal power was enough to help Huang Denyo break through. What surprised Duan Ling Tian was that Huang Denyo had actually comprehended the 6th level intermediate Earth concept. He still remembered that a month ago, when he first met Huang Denyo had only comprehended the 5th level intermediate Earth concept. This meant that his current 6th level intermediate Earth concept was something he had only comprehended recently. Whoosh. Suddenly, a series of air currents swept by, drawing Duan Ling Tian's attention. He saw that above the head of Nangong Yi, who was confronting Huang Denyo, the power of heaven and earth began to fluctuate, then quickly converged into a heaven and earth phenomenon. 100 ancient horned dragon silhouettes appeared first, as if telling the surrounding people about Nangong Yi's current cultivation. Void prying stage, 7th level. Immediately after, another 90 ancient horned dragon silhouettes appeared, coiling downwards, poised to strike. 8th level intermediate water concept. Seeing this, Duan Ling Tian's pupils involuntarily constricted. He had never expected Nangong Yi's strength to be so formidable. In addition to his impressive cultivation, he had also comprehended an 8th level void prying concept. Without a spirit weapon, Nangong Yi's power was comparable to that of 190 ancient horned dragons. This was even stronger than Huang Denyo, who had borrowed earth force through his earth concept, exceeding him by a full 5 ancient horned dragons worth of power. Void prying stage, 7th level. 8th level intermediate water concept. Seeing the strength Nangong Yi displayed, Huang Denyo's face also paled in shock. After taking a deep breath, Huang Denyo's expression gradually calmed down. His gaze was fixed intently on Nangong Yi. Although the gap of 5 ancient horned dragons worth of power was still somewhat significant, with the aid of Earth Force, he was already capable of contending. Earth Force granted him an additional 35 ancient horned dragons worth of power. If he hadn't borrowed Earth Force through his Earth concept, the gap between him and Nangong Yi wouldn't have been just 5 ancient horned dragons worth of power. It would have been 40 ancient horned dragons worth of power. A gap of 40 ancient horned dragons worth of power would have allowed Nangong Yi to easily defeat him in a single exchange. Senior brother Yi is so strong. No wonder senior brother Yi dared to agree to Huang Denyo's unreasonable request. It turns out he wasn't afraid of Huang Denyo even with his Earth Force activated. So what if Huang Denyo has activated his Earth Force? He's still no match for senior brother Yi. Many of the younger generation disciples of the 5 Elements sect who were watching stared intently at Nangong Yi, their eyes burning in their eyes. Nangong Yi was an insurmountable existence they could only look up to, and also the future pillar of their 5 Elements sect. Come on. Nangong Yi was enveloped by a light shield formed by a sky-blue ripple, and he looked at Huang Denyo with a smile. Upon hearing this, Huang Denyo took a deep breath, his muscles bulging all over his body, and the earthy yellow power around him surged. The next moment, a portion of the earthy yellow power separated and quickly condensed into a stone platform beneath his feet. As soon as the stone platform appeared, Huang Denyo made his move. Boom. Huang Denyo's legs landed on the stone platform with a deafening thud. In an instant, the stone platform cracked, and lines of fissures spread out in all directions. Intertwining like a spiderweb, the cracks covered the entire stone platform in a flash, and the platform exploded with a bang, turning into a cloud of dust. Whoosh. At the same time, Huang Denyo, using the stone platform for leverage, shot out like a cannonball, swiftly rushing towards Nangong Yi, and threw a punch. Whoosh. His punch was like a collapsing mountain, and vast earthy yellow power swept out, as if transforming into an earthy yellow divine dragon, bearing its fangs and claws as it pounced towards Nangong Yi. At the same time, above Huang Denyo's head, the 185 ancient horned dragon silhouettes also charged out, heading towards the 190 ancient horned dragon silhouettes above Nangong Yi's head. Boom, 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 boom. Huang Dinyo went all out from the start, his punch, containing the power of 185 ancient horned dragons, made the air currents surge and created a series of piercing air explosions. Dinyo, with the earth force. Even I, without using a soul skill, might not be able to withstand a single punch from him. The scene before him made Duan Ling Tian's gaze incredibly complex that he suddenly felt that, from the past until now, he seemed to have relied too much on soul skills. Of course, he knew in his heart that the reason he relied so heavily on the soul skill Thousand Illusions was because soul skills were the strongest means he currently possessed, his spiritual power being at a higher level than his cultivation also meant that the effect of soul skills was greater than what his own strength could achieve. Perhaps, if my spiritual power hadn't broken through to the void prying stage, 7th level, when my cultivation broke through to the void prying stage, 6th level, last time, it might not have been a bad thing for me. Duan Ling Tian mused to himself that it had to be said that the existence of the soul skill Thousand Illusions had, to some extent, affected Duan Ling Tian's drive for improvement. At the very least, he had become somewhat lax in his cultivation of martial skills since its initial mastery in Flowing Cloud Town. Duan Ling Tian had never practiced 9 Dragons Inch Radiance Flash again, instead dedicating himself entirely to improving his cultivation and comprehending concepts, neglecting one for the other. Boom! A loud noise brought the distracted Duan Ling Tian back to his senses, and he looked up towards the source of the sound. He saw that, facing Huang Dinyo's fierce punch, which contained the power of 185 ancient horned dragons. Nangong Yi surprisingly did not dodge, but met it head-on. He also threw a punch, directly clashing with Huang Dinyo's fist. In an instant, the earthy yellow power and the sky blue power collided, emitting a deafening roar, followed by a series of terrifying air explosions at the same time. The air currents were constantly being compressed and shattered, causing continuous gusts of wind to sweep out in all directions. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The fierce wind raged, making the robes of those present flutter and crackle. Some of the 5 Elements sect disciples with lower cultivation levels even turned pale, involuntarily retreating a distance, squinting their eyes to resist the oncoming gale, including Duan Ling Tian. Those who were not afraid of the gusts of wind all watched the changes in the arena with solemn expressions. Since Nangong Yi chose to confront Huang Dinyo head-on, he clearly intended to decide the victor in a single strike. Deciding the victor in one strike seemed simple, but there were many intricacies involved. Firstly, striking first could gain a certain advantage. This advantage was fully exploited by Huang Dinyo. Under such circumstances, even if Nangong Yi's power exceeded Huang Dinyo's by 5 ancient horned dragons worth of power, no one dared to say that he could overpower Huang Dinyo in a head-on clash. Boom, 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 boom. In the distance, explosions continued to erupt, and air currents swept through, constantly stirring up gusts of wind that spread in all directions. In the arena, Nangong Yi and Huang Dinyo's bodies paused in midair, their fists colliding. The sky blue power seemed to form wave after wave of surging tides, as if to blast away any obstacles in its path. And the earthy yellow power on the opposite side was equally formidable, with a continuous flow of rolling power surging out, and it created a strange resonance with the nearby golden peak. The two were in a stalemate, evenly matched. This Huang Dinyo, after borrowing Earth Force, is actually this strong? He can even fight senior brother E to a draw. A 5 Elements sect disciple couldn't help but exclaim, regardless of today's outcome, this Huang Dinyo will surely become famous throughout our 5 Elements sect, becoming a new young powerhouse within our sect. With Huang Dinyo's strength, aided by Earth Force, in our 5 Elements sect, I'm afraid only senior brother Chun and senior brother E can rival him. Even senior brother Hu Fei cannot. Yes, that's right. Although senior brother Hu Fei has also broken through to the void prying stage, 7th level, he has only comprehended a 7th level void prying concept. When he goes all out barehanded, He is weaker than senior brother Yi by 10 ancient horned dragons worth of power. He's also weaker than the current Huang Dinyo by 5 ancient horned dragons worth of power. If they were to clash head-on, senior brother Hu Fei probably wouldn't be Huang Dinyo's opponent. However, Huang Dinyo needs to be in a specific environment to borrow earth force and possess such powerful strength. Senior brother Hu Fei can completely move away from this specific environment that benefits Huang Dinyo. That's true. A group of 5 Elements sect disciples discussed animatedly, unconsciously comparing Huang Dinyo to Hu Fei. This Huang Dinyo actually possesses such strength. Hearing these words, Hu Fei's face was extremely grim. Not long ago, after he learned from some Fire Peak disciples that the one who had slapped him twice was Huang Dinyo, he wished he could tear Huang Dinyo to pieces and scatter his ashes. He had originally thought that a person like Huang Dinyo, no matter the circumstances, was destined to be abused by him. But now, he realized that if Huang Dinyo were to borrow earth force without using a spirit weapon, he would almost certainly not be Huang Dinyo's opponent. This made him feel ashamed and indignant. If it were his turn to fight Huang Dinyo, and Huang Dinyo insisted on playing dirty by staying on the side of the Golden Peak, he really wouldn't be able to do anything about Huang Dinyo. The 5 Peaks battle didn't seem to have any rules against borrowing earth force. At that time, they would probably only be judged as a draw that he had no confidence in defeating Huang Dinyo, who had borrowed earth force. Under the gaze of all, Nangong Yi and Huang Dinyo continued to be locked in a stalemate, their power constantly erupting and colliding fiercely, evenly matched, with no clear victor. That is, suddenly, Duan Ling Tian's pupils constricted, and his gaze was fixed intently on Nangong Yi's fist, as if he had discovered something. Asterisk, just as Duan Ling Tian focused his gaze on Nangong Yi's fist, the aqua-blue energy on the surface of Nangong Yi's fist suddenly retracted, as if it was completely compressed together, under everyone's watchful eyes. The aqua-blue energy around Nangong Yi's fist abruptly contracted, wrapping around his fist, and as his power retracted, Huang Dinyo's power was completely unleashed. The energy, which seemed to transform into an earthy yellow divine dragon, swept out with destructive force towards Nangong Yi, senior brother Yi. At this moment, the hearts of most young disciples of the 5 Elements sect couldn't help but leap into their throats. Their faces filled with worry as they looked at Nangong Yi in their opinion. Nangong Yi had clearly fallen into a disadvantage. It's fine. It's fine. Even if senior brother Yi loses, Huang Dinyo's victory wouldn't be honorable. Senior brother Yi didn't use the power of the earth. Many disciples of the Gold Peak comforted themselves. However, the thoughts of the 5 Elements sect's 5 Peak masters, the elders beside them, and even Duan Ling Tian, were different from those ordinary disciples. Amateurs watched the excitement. Experts watched the technique. Nangong Yi, seemingly retracting the power from his fist and giving Huang Dinyo a complete advantage, was actually preparing a follow-up move, just as a group of 5 Elements sect disciples held their breath for Nangong Yi. And as Duan Ling Tian's gaze completely sharpened, under everyone's watchful eyes, Nangong Yi moved. Whoosh. Nangong Yi stepped forward, directly confronting Huang Dinyo's punch, which contained immense power. To outsiders, it looked no different from suicide. Senior brother Yi. Seeing this scene, many female disciples of the 5 Elements sect couldn't help but cry out in alarm. And just then, the sticky aqua-blue energy around Nangong Yi's fist, which had seemingly turned into liquid, suddenly erupted as his fist once again met Huang Dinyo's. Boom. Terrifying power burst forth from Nangong Yi's fist, exploding outwards. This scene, in Duan Ling Tian's eyes, was no different from a bomb exploding on Earth in his previous life. After the power on Nangong Yi's fist exploded, the onlookers' eyes were filled with a vast aqua-blue sky, as if half of the sky had been dyed blue to at this moment. One could vaguely see 2 figures colliding behind this aqua-blue curtain of sky. Suddenly, one of the average-sized figures, after leaning forward, maintained a punching posture, unmoving. In contrast, the other tall figure was sent flying backward like an arrow released from a bowstring. At the same time, he opened his mouth and spat out several mouthfuls of dark blood towards the sky. grunting several times in succession. Boom. Almost simultaneously, a terrifying roar echoed, and a vast gale swept in all directions, blowing away the aqua-blue curtain of sky that I in the distance. Nangong stood in midair, graceful and elegant that I in contrast. Huang Dinyo stood even further away, his figure disheveled. After taking a healing pill, his extremely pale face recovered a little. You are very strong. I, Huang Dinyo, admit defeat wholeheartedly. Taking a deep breath, Huang Dinyo looked at Nangong Yi and said candidly, after speaking, without waiting for Nangong Yi's response. He flew back to Duan Ling Tian and the others from the Wood Peak. Peak Master, Elder Yang, Elder Ko, I have disappointed you. Huang Dinyo said apologetically. Dinyo, you did very well. Kuzheng smiled earlier, when Huang Dinyo displayed his full strength without reservation. It also startled him that he never expected that Huang Dinyo's strength would change so much in just 1 month. Dinyo, when did you break through to the 6th level of the Void Prying stage? And you even comprehended the 6th level intermediate Earth concept. Shenwei looked at Huang Dinyo, his face stunned at this moment. He only felt that this big fellow in front of him had suddenly become so unfamiliar. So unfamiliar that he needed to get to know him again. Huang Dinyo grinned foolishly, offering no further explanation. He also realized that neither Kuzheng nor Shenwei seemed to know about the grand origin fruit. Since that was the case, he naturally wouldn't reveal it on his own. After all, the grand origin fruit he had consumed was originally intended by the Wood Peak Master for Shenwei. Who knew if Kuzheng and his disciple would have any objections if they found out? Good. The Wood Peak Master, Chi Yu, smiled and nodded at Huang Dinyo, clearly very satisfied with Huang Dinyo's performance just now. Huang Dinyo was immediately flattered upon hearing this. Dinyo, you really hid your strength well. When did you comprehend the 6th level intermediate Earth concept? Duan Ling Tian gave Huang Dinyo a deep look. Just a few days ago. Huang Dinyo said with a grin. I concede. Suddenly, a soft voice entered Duan Ling Tian's ears, making him snap back to reality and turn to look in the direction of the voice. With just one glance, he saw the owner of the voice, Tan Huan, the #1 young disciple of the Water Peak in this generation, and also the strongest female disciple among the contemporary young generation of the Five Elements sect. After Huang Dinyo and Nangong Yi's battle, it was her turn to face Hu Fei. However, having witnessed Hu Fei's 7th level Void Prying stage cultivation, she knew she was no match for him and rationally conceded that Hu Fei advanced. And the second round concluded. The male disciple from Earth Peak had a bye. The third round began. Huang Dinyo faced the male disciple from Earth Peak. The opponent, having witnessed Huang Dinyo's strength, had no intention of fighting him and directly conceded. Following that, only Huang Dinyo and Hu Fei remained. Whoosh. Before Hu Fei even entered the arena, under everyone's stunned gaze, Huang Dinyo suddenly transformed into a bolt of lightning, instantly reaching the side of the gold peak, right against the cliff. Seeing Huang Dinyo's actions, everyone except Duan Ling Tian and a few others was speechless. This Huang Dinyo is too shameless, isn't he? Asterisk, I was just thinking, if Huang Dinyo faced senior brother Hu Fei, would he get close to the gold peak to use the power of the earth? But I didn't expect him to run there before even facing senior brother Hu Fei. Once there, Huang Dinyo's strength will increase by 35 ancient horned dragons worth of power, which is even stronger than senior brother Hu Fei's full power. I wonder if senior brother Hu Fei will take the initiative to go over and fight him. The Five Element sect disciples present discussed animatedly. Many felt Huang Dinyo was shameless, while many others thought he was smart. That Hu Fei flew out and stood in midair, far from the gold peak, gazing intently at Huang Dinyo, who was leaning against the side of the gold peak. He said with a deep, sarcastic voice, Huang Dinyo, if you're still a man, then come over and fight me. Hu Fei. Hearing Hu Fei's words, Huang Dinyo chuckled. If you admit you're still a human, then you come over and fight me. You're a 7th level Void Prying stage martial artist. You're not scared of me. A 6th level Void Prying stage martial artist, are you? Provocation. Naked provocation. But it had to be said. Hu Fei was enraged. Completely enraged, Hu Fei's eyes instantly turned blood red as he stared intently at Huang Dinyo from afar. If gazes could kill, Huang Dinyo would have died countless times over. However, Hu Fei made no move because he had no confidence in defeating Huang Dinyo, who was using the power of the earth. Without confidence, he wouldn't make a move. Otherwise, once defeated by Huang Dinyo, he, Hu Fei, would become the laughingstock of all 5-element sect disciples in the future, unable to hold his head high. Because of this, he dared not gamble. For a moment, the atmosphere on the scene was a bit strange. Huang Dinyo stood in midair in the area close to the gold peak, while Hu Fei stood in midair far from the gold peak. The two faced each other, but neither made any move. Sect Master. Just then, the Fire Peak Master, Cha Bai, stepped forward. Looking at the 5-element sect master, Guochong, he said in a deep voice, "Since that Huang Dinyo doesn't dare to step forward and fight my useless disciple, this battle should rightfully be his loss. I ask the sect master to make a decision." Before Guochong could speak, the Wood Peak Master, Chi Yu, who stood beside Duan Ling Tian, stepped out into the air. He said in a cold voice, "Cha Bai, you're still as shameless as ever. You say Huang Dinyo doesn't dare to step forward and fight Hu Fei. Then I'd like to ask you, does Hu Fei dare to step forward and fight Huang Dinyo?" Chi Yu's question, falling into the ears of the onlookers from the 5-element sect, made everyone except the Fire Peak disciples nod in agreement. That's right. Huang Dinyo doesn't dare to leave the side of the gold peak and fight senior brother Hu Fei. But senior brother Hu Fei also doesn't dare to take the initiative to go forward and fight Huang Dinyo. In this battle, although Huang Dinyo is shameless, it must be said that he is very smart and knows how to use his advantages. If neither of them dares to make a move in this battle, ending in a draw would be the best outcome. A group of 5-element sect disciples discussed animatedly, their voices noisy, yet still reaching the ears of the peak masters and elders. For a moment, Cha Bai's face became extremely ugly. He never expected that, apart from his Fire Peak disciples, the disciples of the Gold Peak, Water Peak, and Earth Peak all sided with Chi Yu, supporting him. However, if this battle truly ended in a draw, he would absolutely not be willing. After all, if Hu Fei and Huang Dinyo drew, their rankings would be tied to AT that time. As long as the other representative of the Wood Peak defeated the other representative of his Fire Peak, his Fire Peak would have to rank below the Wood Peak. That was something he was unwilling to see. The other representative of the Wood Peak was Duan Ling Tian, a young man who exuded mystery at every turn, and the fact that the Wood Peak kept him as a trump card, allowing him to rest for now, indirectly suggested that his strength was even above Huang Dinyo's. For Duan Ling Tian to defeat the other representative of his Fire Peak, a Fire Peak disciple who had just broken through to the 5th level of the Void Prying stage, would probably be a very simple matter. Chi Yu, you can't say that. It's common knowledge that any martial artist whose cultivation has entered the Void Prying stage, as long as they encounter someone who has comprehended the Earth concept, will almost never engage in battle on the ground with the opponent. Cha Bai stared at Chi Yu and said in a deep voice, "Am I wrong?" "You are not wrong." Chi Yu nodded, just as the onlookers, including Duan Ling Tian, were momentarily stunned, and a triumphant smile appeared on Cha Bai's face. Chi Yu spoke again. Asterisk, but what if a martial artist who has comprehended the Earth intent never leaves the ground? Would those martial artists who are far from the ground be able to do anything to him? Chi Yu glanced at Cha Bai lightly and said, "You're just being unreasonable." Cha Bai's face darkened with anger. "Unreasonable?" Chi Yu smiled, a brilliant smile. "Cha Bai, since you say I'm being unreasonable, then let's get straight to it. You and I will fight. If you win, I'll have Dinyo concede. If you lose, you have Hu Fei concede. How about it?" Chi Yu, the Peak Master of Wood Peak, openly challenged Cha Bai, the Peak Master of Fire Peak. Whoosh. As soon as Chi Yu finished speaking, it was like a stone stirring up 1,000 ripples, invigorating the group of 5-element sect disciples. Peak Master Chi Yu is challenging Peak Master Cha Bai? It's said that Peak Master Chi Yu is the second strongest in our 5-element sect, second only to the sect master. Does Peak Master Cha Bai dare to accept the challenge? Didn't you see Peak Master Cha Bai's face turn green? If he dares to accept, I'll bet you 10 mid-grade origin stones. If he doesn't dare to accept, you bet me 10 mid-grade origin stones. How about it? Bah, only a fool would gamble with you. Aside from the Fire Peak disciples, whose expressions were a bit ugly, the disciples of the other 4 peaks were discussing animatedly, especially those from Wood Peak, who openly started gambling. These words naturally reached Cha Bai's ears, not missing a single one, making his blood churn with anger. He wished he could directly accept Chi Yu's challenge and fight him for 300 rounds. But could he? He knew he was no match for Chi Yu, and once defeated in front of everyone, what would become of his prestige as the Fire Peak Master? All right, do you two really think you won't have a chance to fight? Don't forget, today is the 5 Peaks battle, not your stage. Guochong, the sect master of the 5 Elements sect, finally couldn't stand it anymore and spoke up to mediate. Humph. This Peak Master will let it go, out of respect for the sect master. Guochong's words undoubtedly gave Cha Bai an out, and Cha Bai snorted coldly. Huh? Cha Bai, the sect master also said that you and I don't need to worry about not having a chance to fight. Now, I challenge you to a battle after the 5 Peaks battle concludes. Do you dare? Chi Yu smiled faintly, completely shattering the out Guochong had given Cha Bai, showing no mercy. Do you dare? Yu. Seeing Chi Yu not letting up, Cha Bai's face turned ashen with rage. Yet he dared not accept the challenge. Chi Yu, known as the second strongest in the 5 Element sect, was not a false reputation. Cha Bai, as the Fire Peak Master of the 5 Element sect, naturally knew this very well. This was also why he dared not accept the challenge. Because once he did, his outcome was already sealed, certain defeat. Chi Yu, give me some face. Guochong frowned and urged again. Chi Yu gave Guochong a deep look, then nodded and retreated at the same time. He looked at Cha Bai, the Fire Peak Master, and said indifferently, Cha Bai, in these past years, I haven't interfered with Wood Peak affairs, but that doesn't mean I don't know what you've been up to. From now on, if you dare to do anything that displeases me to my Wood Peak again, I, Peak Master Chi, will come to your Fire Peak and break both your legs. Chi Yu's words made Cha Bai's face even uglier, yet he dared not retort this moment. He knew that the Chi Yu from over 20 years ago had returned, the uninhibited Chi Yu, who dared to fight a Void Purgatory Realm Peak expert with a cultivation of just entering the 9th level of the Void Purgatory Realm, had returned. Seeing Chi Yu, with just a few words, rendered Cha Bai utterly speechless. All the 5 Element sect disciples, including those from Fire Peak, were in an uproar, although they had heard that Chi Yu was the second strongest in the 5 Element sect. They had never imagined his deterrent power could be so great, making the Fire Peak Master not dare to utter a single word with just a few sentences. Peak Master. One by one, the Wood Peak disciples looked on with excitement and pride. This was their Wood Peak Master. Hey, brother, which peak are you from? A Wood Peak disciple looked at a disciple from another peak nearby and asked with a smile. I'm from Earth Peak, and you? The latter replied. I'm from Wood Peak. See that? That's our Wood Peak Master. Isn't he awesome? The Wood Peak disciple puffed out his chest and asked with a smile. Awesome. The latter nodded heavily, then smiled fawningly. Brother, can I ask you something? What? If I want to transfer from Earth Peak to Wood Peak, what do I need to do? Similar scenes played out among many Wood Peak disciples. They, who had always been unable to hold their heads high in front of the other 4 peaks, finally puffed out their chests today and could proudly declare, I am a Wood Peak disciple. At this moment, they were proud to be Wood Peak disciples. Yu Fong, the Peak Master of Water Peak, and Tian Gu, the Peak Master of Earth Peak, exchanged glances, both seeing a hint of apprehension in the other's eyes. Immediately, their expressions grew serious. In this world where the strong reign supreme, it truly is whoever has the bigger fist is the boss. Seeing Cha Bai, the Fire Peak Master, cowering before their Wood Peak Master, Chi Yu, daring to be angry but not to speak, Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but shake his head and smiled at the same time. He was also shocked by Chi Yu's strength. It seems the Peak Master is in a very good mood today to teach Cha Bai such a merciless lesson. Ku Zheng said with a smile. The Peak Master probably wanted to do this for a long time, but never had the confidence. After all, in the past, the younger generation disciples of Arwood Peak were really disappointing, which disheartened him quite a bit. Now, with Duan Ling Tian and Huang Denyo in Arwood Peak, the Peak Master finally has the confidence to do this. Yang Ling said incisively. The various peaks of the five-element sect coexisted and were also in a competitive relationship. A Peak Master, no matter how strong, would eventually reach the end of their lifespan. The cultivation of the younger generation of disciples was the foundation of each peak, the pillar that would support the future of each peak. With the intervention of Guochong, the sect master of the five-element sect, Qi Yu and Cha Bai finally retreated to their respective sides. Immediately after, Guochong looked at Huang Denyo and Hu Fei and said in a booming voice, "I'll give you 20 more breaths of time. After 20 breaths, if neither of you has made a move, this battle between you will end in a drought." As soon as Guochong finished speaking, Huang Denyo smiled that Hu Fei, however, had an ashen face to draw. Him and Huang Denyo, he was a 7th-level Void Purgatory Realm martial artist, and he had comprehended 7th-level Intermediate Fire Intent. Huang Denyo was only a 6th-level Void Purgatory Realm martial artist, and he had only comprehended 6th-level Intermediate Earth Intent. Now, his battle with Huang Denyo was to end in a draw? At this moment, Hu Fei could feel the mocking glances from all around him. These glances were nothing more than mocking him, a 7th-level Void Purgatory Realm martial artist, for not daring to proactively fight a 6th-level Void Purgatory Realm martial artist. Immediately, he was so ashamed and angry that he almost couldn't hold back, but his rationality was constantly urging him not to be impulsive, and that he couldn't be impulsive. If he made a move, it would be fine if he won, but if he lost, he would never be able to hold his head high in the five-element sect, in Fire Peak. Ever again. He dared not gamble. There are still 10 breaths of time. In a blink of an eye, 10 breaths of time passed, and Guochong spoke lightly to remind them. Still 10 breaths of time? As if remembering something, Duan Ling Tian's eyes flashed. He looked at Huang Denyo, grinned, and said loudly, "Denyo, impressive. This Hu Fei actually doesn't dare to actively go up and fight you. After today, you'll be considered a notable figure in the five-element sect." Hearing Duan Ling Tian's words, Huang Denyo grinned proudly. "Oh, by the way, Denyo, earlier, when you slapped Hu Fei into a pig's head, did your hand hurt? I think Hu Fei's skin on his face seems pretty thick." A smile played on Duan Ling Tian's lips as he asked loudly. As soon as Duan Ling Tian said this, the group of five-element sect disciples watching were stunned. Immediately after, they subconsciously looked at Hu Fei, only to find that Hu Fei's face instantly turned crimson, and his eyes shot out murderous glares, staring intently at Huang Denyo. This Duan Ling Tian is really ruthless. He's hitting where it hurts. Isn't this forcing senior brother Hu Fei to make a move? I think senior brother Hu Fei is about to reach his limit of anger. Just a little more, and he might not be able to hold back from attacking Huang Denyo. As long as Huang Denyo responds to Duan Ling Tian with senior brother Hu Fei's temper, he will definitely make a move. At this moment, a group of five-element sect disciples guessed Duan Ling Tian's intention, which was nothing more than to force Hu Fei to attack Huang Denyo. Duan Ling Tian, don't think you can be reckless just because you have Qi Yu backing you. Qi Yu can't always be by your side. If you dare to say one more word, I'll make sure you die outside, leaving no corpse behind. Suddenly, a sinister and malicious voice reached Duan Ling Tian's ears. Duan Ling Tian raised an eyebrow and looked towards the source of the voice, which was none other than Cha Bai, the Fire Peak Master. Immediately, Duan Ling Tian smiled faintly and said loudly, "Peak Master Cha Bai, did you just say that Peak Master Qi you can't always be by my side, and that you can make me die outside, leaving no corpse behind, anytime?" As soon as Duan Ling Tian said this, Cha Bai's face changed drastically. He never expected Duan Ling Tian to openly reveal the words he had used his origin energy to transmit as a threat. At this moment, he could feel gazes sweeping over him from all around. Even the gaze of Guochong, the sect master of the five-element sect, swept over, clearly mixed with a hint of anger. Duan Ling Tian, no matter what, was a Wood Peak disciple. A Wood Peak disciple was a five-element sect disciple. Now, Cha Bai, as the Fire Peak Master, was actually threatening a junior disciple of the same sect in such a way, which made even the sect master unable to suppress the anger rising from within him. Duan Ling Tian, don't slander me. Cha Bai roared at AT this time. How could he possibly admit to having said those words? If he admitted it, let alone the people from the other 4 peaks, even the Fire Peak disciples would probably look down on him from the bottom of their hearts. Slander? Duan Ling Tian smiled. Then, Peak Master Cha Bai, do you dare to swear an oath by the 99 Thunder Tribulation that you never said those words? As soon as Duan Ling Tian spoke, all eyes around them fixed on Cha Bai, seemingly eager to know if Cha Bai dared to swear by the 99 Thunder Tribulation. Not if he dared. It would mean that Duan Ling Tian was indeed slandering him. Not if he didn't dare. It would mean that he had indeed threatened Duan Ling Tian. Humph. Cha Bai ignored the gazes from all around him, glanced indifferently at Duan Ling Tian, and snorted. I am the dignified Peak Master of Fire Peak. Why should I swear for a mere Wood Peak disciple like you? You are not worthy. Since Peak Master Cha Bai has said so, then I... At this point, Duan Ling Tian paused, then pricked his finger, and a drop of fresh blood rose into the air. Seeing this, Cha Bai's expression changed drastically. Guessing what Duan Ling Tian was about to do, he wanted to interrupt, but he found that the cold gaze of Wood Peak's Peak Master, Chi Yu, was fixed on him. That he had no doubt that if he dared to attack Duan Ling Tian, Chi Yu would definitely attack him. I, Duan Ling Tian, swear by my own blood. If anything I just said is false, I am willing to be struck dead by the 99 Thunder Tribulation. As soon as Duan Ling Tian made this vow, thunder rumbled in the sky, with 9 distinct claps of thunder, but no lightning descended. Whoosh. For a moment, all the disciples of the 5 Elements sect were in an uproar, apart from the Fire Peak disciples. The gazes of the disciples from the other 4 peaks, when they fell on Cha Bai, clearly held a hint of disdain. The dignified Peak Master of Fire Peak actually threatened an ordinary disciple like that. It's truly beneath him. I really don't know how such a person became the Peak Master of Fire Peak. Did they not consider character at all when selecting Peak Masters in the past? With such a Fire Peak Master, the character of the Fire Peak disciples can't be much better. The disciples of the 4 peaks discussed animatedly, their words unreserved. Hearing these words, the Fire Peak disciples were momentarily speechless, only able to secretly glare resentfully at their Fire Peak Master, Cha Bai. In their opinion, if not for Cha Bai, they would not have been mocked like this. For a time, many Fire Peak disciples began to consider transferring to other peaks. Cha Bai's expression had already changed when Duan Ling Tian made his vow, and now hearing the discussions of the 4 peak disciples, he was so angered that his blood surged. Whoosh. Just then, a ghostly figure instantly appeared in front of Cha Bai. Chi Yu. Cha Bai, who had only seen a flash before his eyes, immediately recognized the person who appeared before him. His face changed drastically, and he hurriedly circulated the Yuan force within his body, wanting to defend himself. Unfortunately, he was still too slow. Bang! A deafening crash resounded. Immediately after, everyone saw that the moment Chi Yu appeared in front of Cha Bai flew out like an arrow shot from a bowstring, spitting out blood as if it were free. After flying over 100 meters, Cha Bai finally managed to stabilize his figure. But even after taking a healing pill, blood continued to pour from his mouth, only slowing down after a long while. This time, the 5 Elements sect master, Guo merely frowned but did not intervene. Perhaps he also felt that Cha Bai had gone a bit too far this time. So strong. In just an instant, Peak Master Chi Yu appeared in front of Peak Master Cha Bai, and Peak Master Cha Bai was severely injured and sent flying. I couldn't even see how Peak Master Chi Yu arrived in front of Peak Master Cha Bai, or how he attacked to send Peak Master Cha Bai flying. Nonsense. Without a cultivation above the void transformation realm, do you expect to clearly see Peak Master Chi Yu's movements? Aside from the Fire Peak disciples who looked bitter, the disciples of the other 4 peaks had their eyes light up, all astonished by Chi Yu's formidable strength. Did you see that? That's our Wood Peak Master. I'm a Wood Peak disciple. Envious, aren't you? A group of Wood Peak disciples were beaming, feeling that the years of pent-up frustration had vanished. and they finally felt vindicated. At this moment, they were proud to be Wood Peak disciples. Cha Bai, I warn you, if anything happens to Duan Ling Tian in the future, I will personally kill your direct disciple. Chi Yu looked at Cha Bai and spoke coldly. Chi Yu. Cha Bai's face changed, and he couldn't catch his breath, spitting out 2 more mouthfuls of clotted blood. Then, with a fierce glare, he looked at Chi Yu. Chi Yu, however, ignored him and returned to the side of the Wood Peak group. Thank you, Peak Master. Duan Ling Tian thanked Chi Yu for standing up for him. As long as I'm here, Cha Bai won't dare to touch you. Chi Yu smiled slightly. I in the distance. Huang Dinyo, who was standing in the air on the side of Gold Peak, had already become furious when he heard Duan Ling Tian say that fire Peak Master Cha Bai had threatened him. Even though Chi Yu had attacked and severely injured Cha Bai, he still felt it wasn't enough to vent his anger. Hu Fei, you are indeed as useless as your master. Speaking of which, my hand still hurts a bit from the 2 slaps I gave you last time. I must say, your face is really thick. Huang Dinyo looked at Hu Fei and spoke indifferently, his words full of sarcasm. Hu Fei, already furious because of Duan Ling Tian's words, watched as his master was severely injured by the Wood Peak Master, and his anger swelled, ready to burst now. Hearing Huang Dinyo's sarcastic remarks, he could no longer hold back. Huang Dinyo, you're asking for death. In his extreme rage, Hu Fei roared, and his entire body shot through the air, pouncing towards Huang Dinyo. The moment he flew out, soaring flames erupted from Hu Fei's body, forming a giant flame beast that opened its gaping maw and lunged at Huang Dinyo above the void. A heaven and earth phenomenon rapidly condensed, and 180 ancient horned dragon phantoms surged out, bearing their fangs and claws as they pounced on Huang Dinyo. 7th level of the Void Prying Realm. 7th level, mid-stage fire intent. Hu Fei attacked in a rage, giving his all, with only one thought in his mind: kill Huang Dinyo. Only then could he avenge himself and his master, and vent the hatred in his heart. Good timing. Facing the fierce Hu Fei, who seemed to have transformed into a giant flame beast, Huang Dinyo's eyes lit up. The Yuan force he had been accumulating surged out from within his body. Moments later, the 6th level mid-stage earth intent merged with his Yuan force, transforming into a vast earthen yellow power that enveloped his entire being. Not only that, but the earthen yellow power also seemed to resonate with the nearby Gold Peak, as the earth intent communicated with the power of the earth, borrowing its strength. Whoosh! Above the void, above Huang Dinyo's head, 185 ancient horned dragon phantoms instantly appeared, 5 more than the heaven and earth phenomenon unleashed by Hu Fei's full power. Huang Dinyo, enveloped in earthen yellow power, suddenly stretched out both hands. Rumble! A series of loud roars resounded, and air currents swept through the atmosphere. The earthen yellow power enveloped Huang Dinyo, making him seem to transform into a giant earth beast in an instant. The earth beast pounced, meeting the flame beast. Boom, 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 boom. The 2 giant beasts continuously collided and bit at each other, making it difficult to determine a winner in a short time. But as time passed, the earth beast seemed to possess an endless supply of power, growing stronger with each clash, overpowering the flame beast and causing its flames to constantly extinguish. That a quarter of an hour passed, and the flame beast was suppressed and withered. Boom. The earth beast, however, seemed to have no consumption at all, pouncing with all its might and scattering the flame beast with a few slaps. The flame beast's body was shattered by a few slaps, and Hu Fei, who was inside it, was severely injured without any surprise. After spitting out several mouthfuls of clotted blood, he passed out. Whoosh! Just as the unconscious Hu Fei was about to fall from the sky, an old man appeared out of thin air and caught him. It was none other than the Fire Peak Master, Cha Bai. Cha Bai coldly glanced at Huang Dinyo, who had already withdrawn his power, his eyes filled with extreme coldness, as if he wanted to devour him. If he hadn't been wary of Wood Peak Master Chi Yu, he would have already killed this Huang Dinyo. Old geezer. Just as everyone's gaze fell on Huang Dinyo, the victor, Huang Dinyo suddenly glared, angrily pointing a finger at Cha Bai. Chop, I couldn't help but be stunned at this. Old geezer, you actually dared to threaten me with Yuan force condensed sound. You. You not only want to kill me, but also my family and exterminate my 9 generations? I. I. Huang Dinyo's eyes were bloodshot with anger, and he was gasping for breath. What? Hearing Huang Dinyo's words and seeing his angry expression, everyone, including those from Fire Peak, was stunned that there's something wrong with this Fire Peak master's brain. He had just been lectured by Chi Yu for threatening Duan Ling Tian. Now he actually dared to threaten a Huang Dinyo, who was also a Wood Peak disciple with Duan Ling Tian and was protected by Chi Yu. Wasn't he just asking for death? Soon, most people's gazes uniformly fell on Wood Peak. Master Chi Yu, just in time to see Chi Yu disappear from their sight. Their first reaction was to shift their gaze to where Fire Peak Master Cha Bai was. Sure enough, Chi Yu appeared in front of Cha Bai. Bang! Another loud crash resounded. Immediately after, Cha Bai, who was holding Hu Fei, flew out again, spitting out clotted blood as if it were free, mixed with many blood clots. Wah! Wah wah! Cha Bai, who had barely managed to stabilize himself, continued to vomit clotted blood for a long time before he finally managed to stop. After stopping the bleeding, his eyes filled with killing intent. He didn't look at Chi Yu, but instead looked at Huang Dinyo and angrily said, Huang Dinyo, when did I ever threaten you? At this moment, Cha Bai felt not only shame and anger, but also a sense of grievance. Just now, he had only glared at Huang Dinyo and had not communicated a single word to Huang Dinyo through Yuan force condensed sound. Yet Huang Dinyo had slandered him, claiming he had been threatened. Before he could even explain, Chi Yu had appeared before him again and, without a word, sent him flying with a palm strike, causing his already unhealed internal organs to suffer severe damage once more. Although his current injuries could be healed, even if he took this second-grade rebirth pill, it would likely take 3 to 2 months to fully recover. Peak Master Cha Bai, I was just joking with you. Huang Dinyo awkwardly rubbed the back of his head and gave a simple, honest smile. Wow. Hearing Huang Danian's words, Cha Bai couldn't catch his breath and once again spat out a mouthful of clotted blood. At a joke? Not only was Cha Bai so angry he spat blood, but the group of 5 Element sect disciples watching were also speechless. Their gazes fell on Huang Danian one by one. Feeling that Huang Danian was truly too ruthless that a single joke caused the Fire Peak Master, Cha Bai, to be severely injured again by the Wood Peak Master. Chiyu'd up that guy, Danian. Duan Lingtian laughed, unable to hold it back. Before, how had he not noticed this side of Huang Danian? He was simply ruthless to the point of killing people without consequence. Yang Ling, Kuzhan, and Shen Wei, who were standing beside Duan Lingtian, were stunned for a moment before they too couldn't help but laugh. Danian is really ruthless. This time, Cha Bai will probably hate him to death. Shen Wei shook his head. This kid, I used to think he was quite honest. I really misjudged him. Kuzhan sighed. That's why they say, you can't judge a book by its cover, nor can you measure the sea with a dipper. Yang Ling said seriously. Chi Yu, you must give me an explanation. Cha Bai turned to glare at Chi Yu, roaring. The first time, he had indeed used his Yuan force to threaten Duan Lingtian and was severely injured by Chi Yu for it. Although he was ashamed and angry, he could endure it, but this time, he hadn't threatened Huang Danian at all, yet he was severely injured again by Chi Yu due to Huang Danian's slander. While feeling ashamed and angry, he couldn't help but feel a little wronged. An explanation? Chi Yu raised an eyebrow and said indifferently, Cha Bai, as an elder, why are you so serious? Danian also said, he was just joking with you. Wow. Hearing Chi Yu's words, Cha Bai once again spat out a mouthful of clotted blood, his face growing even paler. At a joke? Is that how you joke? Sect Master, you must uphold justice for me in this matter. Cha Bai looked at Guochong with a sorrowful and indignant expression. Cha Bai, let's stop this matter here. Guochong frowned, then slowly said, but Cha Bai wanted to say something more, but Guochong interrupted him. I said, let's stop this matter here. If you hadn't threatened Duan Lingtian before, with that precedent, would Chi Yu have injured you without a second thought? Towards the end, Guochong's face was serious. Cha Bai took a deep breath and ultimately said no more. but his eyes still gleamed with cold light, staring intently at Chi Yu and Huang Danian. Danian, well done. Chi Yu gave Huang Danian a thumbs up, as if praising him for defeating Hu Fei, and also as if praising him for his well-executed joke. Hee hee. Huang Danian grinned, then provocatively glanced at Chabai, making Chabai's face even uglier. Danian, you're something else. After Huang Danian returned, Duan Lingtian remembered what had just happened and couldn't help but laugh again. Feeling a warmth in his heart, he knew that Danian was getting revenge for him to this moment, as Tan Huan admitted inferiority to Huang Danian. The temporary rankings of the Five Peaks battle were also released, because Nangong defeated Huang Danian, and Hu Fei, Tan Huan, and the male disciple from Earth Peak all admitted inferiority to Nangong. Nangong temporarily ranked first in the Five Peaks battle. Huang Danian, who replaced Nangong in the promotion spot and continued to battle for promotion against Hu Fei and the other two, temporarily ranked second in the Five Peaks battle. Hu Fei temporarily ranked third. Tan Huan temporarily ranked fourth. The male disciple from Earth Peak temporarily ranked fifth. The five of them had no objections to the current rankings. Subsequently, it was the turn of the five earliest eliminated individuals to challenge, namely Duan Lingtian, Nangong Chun, Tian Jun, as well as the female disciple from Water Peak and the male disciple from Fire Peak. The female disciple from Water Peak challenged first, challenging the male disciple from Earth Peak. She lost, temporarily ranking sixth. The male disciple from Fire Peak challenged the male disciple from Earth Peak. He won, temporarily ranking fifth. The male disciple from Earth Peak dropped to sixth. The female disciple from Water Peak dropped to seventh. The seven individuals had no objections to the current temporary rankings. Whoosh. Just as Duan Lingtian looked at Nangong Chun and Tian Jun, wondering if they intended to make a move first, Nangong Chun moved, reaching the side of the gold peak in a moment. Immediately after, his gaze fell on Huang Danian. Although he didn't speak, his target was very clear. Huang Danian. Senior Brother Chun is going to make a move. Senior Brother Chun specifically went to the side of the gold peak, clearly wanting Huang Danian to use the power of the earth. It seems he is very confident in his own strength. That's natural. I heard that Senior Brother Chen's strength is even above Senior Brother Yi's. I still can't figure out who is older between Senior Brother Chen and Senior Brother Yi. It is said that even Senior Brother Chun and Senior Brother Yi themselves don't know who is older. However, they both consider themselves the elder brother and the other the younger brother. The attention of most five-element peak disciples collectively fell on Nangong Chun, with a portion also on Huang Danian. You are Nangong Chun? Both of you brothers are very good. The fact that you can challenge me here, allowing me to use the power of the earth, shows that you are very confident and a worthy opponent. Huang Danian stood in the void opposite Nangong Chun, saying with a solemn expression. Nangong Chen's face was stern, and he nodded faintly. You and I, just like I was with your brother earlier. One punch to decide the winner. How about it? Huang Danian asked. Nangong Chen nodded again. Straightforward. Today, regardless of victory or defeat, I, Huang Danian, will make you my friend. Huang Danian laughed heartily, then immediately unleashed his full power, punching out. The vast earthy yellow power transformed into a cannonball, fiercely striking Nangong Chun above the void. 185 ancient horned dragon phantoms appeared out of thin air, baring their fangs and claws as they pounced towards Nangong Chun. Seeing Huang Danian make a move, Nangong Chun also moved up. He took a step forward and casually threw a punch. Vast Yuan force surged, emitting waves of majestic and profound aura. Whoosh. Above the void, 100 ancient horned dragon phantoms appeared, seemingly proclaiming his cultivation base, 7th level of the void prying realm. Immediately after, an earthy yellow power appeared out of thin air, then merged into the Yuan force, as if resonating with the gold peak not far away. Whoosh. When the Yuan force completely merged with the earthy yellow power, 135 ancient horned dragon phantoms appeared again above the void. He also comprehended the earth concept. Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted, his face filled with shock, and in that instant, Huang Danian who realized that Nangong Chun had also comprehended the earth concept and momentarily showed a bitter smile, but found it difficult to retract his punch. Finally exchanged a punch with Nangong Chun. When the power of 185 ancient horned dragons met the power of 235 ancient horned dragons, the outcome was self-evident. Huang Danian was sent flying by a single punch. However, fortunately, Nangong Chun retracted his hand in time, which only caused Huang Danian to suffer some minor injuries. If I had known earlier that you also comprehended the Earth concept, I would have directly conceded. The 8th level mid-tier Earth concept, comparable to the power of 90 ancient horned dragons, can borrow the power of the Earth, which is comparable to 45 ancient horned dragons. The two combined are indeed powerful. Taking a deep breath and slightly easing his internal injuries, Huang Danian said with a bitter smile, Earth concept. Senior Brother Chen also comprehended the Earth concept. Many disciples of the Five Element sect reacted, exclaiming in surprise. It seems that few Five Element sect disciples knew that Nangong Chun comprehended the Earth concept. This Nangong Chun really hides his strength deeply. Hearing the words of these Five Element sect disciples, Duan Lingtian thought to himself, look at Huang Danian's expression now. I'm dying of laughter. Perhaps he never dreamed that Senior Brother Chen also comprehended the Earth concept. Senior Brother Chen's Earth concept is much stronger than his. Without borrowing the power of the Earth, it's comparable to the power of 90 ancient horned dragons. Once borrowed, it's comparable to the power of 135 ancient horned dragons. Senior Brother Chen's strength is even greater than Senior Brother Yi's. The Five Element sect disciples discussed animatedly, their gazes towards Nangong Chun filled with awe. Nangong Chun defeated Huang Danian, temporarily ranking second in the Five Peaks battle, starting from Huang Danian. Everyone after him moved down one rank. Huang Danian, temporarily ranked third. Hu Fei, temporarily ranked fourth. Tan Huan, temporarily ranked fifth, the male disciple. From Fire Peak, temporarily ranked sixth, the male disciple. From Earth Peak, temporarily ranked seventh, the female disciple. From Water Peak, temporarily ranked eighth. The 8 individuals had no objections to the current rankings. With Nangong Chen's strength, he might have been able to defeat Nangong Yi and temporarily rank first. But because he conceded to Nangong Yi at the very beginning, he cannot challenge Nangong Yi now and is temporarily out of contention for first. Of course, nothing is absolute, as long as someone can defeat Nangong Yi and replace him, temporarily ranking first. Nangong Chen still has a chance to challenge that person to become first. At this moment, only Duan Lingtian and Tianjun had yet to make their move. Whoosh. Tianjun took a deep breath and flew out, his gaze sweeping over Nangong Yi, Nangong Chun, Huang Danian, and Hu Fei, before locking onto Tan Huan. The Water Peak Master's direct discipled 8s long as he defeated Tan Huan. The Earth Peak, which he represented, would rank fourth in the individual battles of the Five Peaks battle. This was also his goal. Tan Huan. Tianjun challenged Tan Huan. Tan Huan was not surprised by Tianjun challenging her. In fact, as early as when Huang Danian displayed his astonishing strength and even used the power of the Earth to defeat Hu Fei, she knew that this time's Five Peaks battle, the last two ranked peaks, would undoubtedly be her Water Peak and Tianjun's Earth Peak. Now, what she had to do was defeat Tianjun and save Water Peak from the fate of being last. Her thoughts were exactly the same as Tianjun's. Swish. Swish. After the two entered the arena, they didn't speak, but tacitly attacked and fought at the same time. For a while, they were evenly matched, making it difficult to determine a winner. Both were 6th-level void prying realm martial artists, and their comprehended concepts were also quite similar. More than anything, it was a test of martial skills, combat experience, and understanding of their opponent. This Tianjun is probably going to lose. Watching the two young men and women constantly crossing paths, Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed slightly. He could see that Tianjun was gradually falling into a disadvantage. The truth was just as Duan Lingtian thought. After another quarter of an hour, Tan Huan narrowly defeated Tianjun. After being defeated, Tianjun's face was extremely grim, but he knew very well what this defeat meant. In the distance, Tu Feng's peak master, Tian Gu, looked somewhat dejected and sighed. It seems our Tu Feng is destined to be at the bottom this time. Although, it's currently only the individual battle of the Five Peaks battle, and the team battle hasn't started yet. But generally speaking, the peak that gains an advantage in the individual battle usually doesn't perform poorly in the team battle. Tian Jun retreated with a somber face that on the other hand, Tan Huan returned to Shui Feng's peak master, Yu Feng, with a triumphant look. Huaner, well done. Yu Feng's face showed a gentle smile. She was very satisfied with Tan Huan's performance, although her initial goal was third place. But ever since Mu Feng's Huang Dinyo displayed astonishing strength, and Mu Feng also had Duan Ling Tian as a trump card, she no longer dared to think that way. Duan Ling Tian. Yu Feng's gaze quickly fell upon the purple figure in the distance. Everyone else's eyes also landed on Duan Ling Tian one by one. Now, it was Duan Ling Tian's turn to issue a challenge. Noticing the gazes sweeping over and locking onto him, Duan Ling Tian remained calm, soaring into the air and instantly arriving at the empty space ahead. His gaze immediately locked onto Nangong Yi. This Duan Ling Tian wants to challenge senior brother Yi. Immediately, many Five Elements sect disciples who followed Duan Ling Tian's gaze were stunned. They knew Nangong Yi's strength. Even if Mu Feng's Huang Dinyo used the power of earth, he was not his opponent. Nangong Yi. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Duan Ling Tian called out his name and issued a challenge. Nangong Yi, being called out by Duan Ling Tian, didn't seem surprised, and flew out to confront Duan Ling Tian. He really is going to challenge senior brother Yi. He's Mu Feng's trump card. Does he really have some special ability? Mu Feng's peak master Qi Yu got paper slips number 5 and 6. Since he let Huang Dinyo go first, he must consider Duan Ling Tian to be Mu Feng's strongest trump card. This Duan Ling Tian must have some strength, but wanting to defeat senior brother Yi is not an easy task. One by one, the Five Elements sect disciples' gazes fell on Duan Ling Tian. They were curious about this trump card of Mu Feng from the bottom of their hearts. Although Nangong Chun said, "I'm not your opponent," I still want to try. Nangong Yi, confronting Duan Ling Tian, spoke, and his words immediately stunned everyone except the Five Elements sect master Guochong, Nangong Chun, and a few people from Mu Feng. Chun, senior brother Chun, said senior brother Yi is not Duan Ling Tian's opponent. How is this possible? Many Five Elements sect disciples found it unbelievable. This Duan Ling Tian looks much younger than senior brother Yi. Can he really defeat senior brother Yi? Many Five Elements sect disciples expressed their doubts. Please. Hearing Nangong Yi's words, Duan Ling Tian's expression remained unchanged, and he nodded faintly. Nangong Yi smiled in response. Then his face tightened. The next moment, he stepped out into the air, and as he did, his elemental energy surged, then transformed into waves of aqua-blue power that swept out. The aqua-blue power entwined around him, making him appear like a giant sea beast, charging fiercely towards Duan Ling Tian. Above the void, 190 ancient horned dragon phantoms also shot out, their momentum like a rainbow thousand illusions. Facing the surging Nangong Yi, Duan Ling Tian dared not be negligent. A faint light flickered in his eyes, and he directly used his strongest method, soul skill. An illusionary space instantly formed, enveloping an area over 100 meters in radius. Here it comes. Tu Feng's peak master Tian Gu's eyes narrowed, as if he had long anticipated this scene. Boom. After Nangong Yi approached Duan Ling Tian, he unleashed a punch containing vast aqua-blue power, sweeping out like a giant sea beast, extending its massive claw to strike Duan Ling Tian under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Duan Ling Tian, as if he had foreknowledge, didn't display much speed, casually stepping aside to evade Nangong Yi's attack. This scene was as if it had been prearranged with Nangong Yi. Only those who knew Duan Ling Tian's secret understood that all of this was created by the illusion, controlled by Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian has already dodged. So why is senior brother Yi still charging forward and attacking the air? Why does this scene feel somewhat familiar? Didn't a similar situation occur when Hua Feng's senior brother Hu Fei attacked Duan Tian before the Five Peaks battle even started? Wasn't that external force? Many people felt that the scene before them was very familiar, exactly like when Hu Fei attacked Duan Tian earlier, and after his attack missed, he didn't pursue further. It's an external force. Hu Fei, who had sobered up and recovered with the help of Hua Feng's peak master Cha Bai, saw this scene and his expression changed. Cha Bai's eyes suddenly lit up when he heard this. Immediately after, he looked at Guochong and said loudly, "Sect Master, this Duan Tian is using an external force. According to the rules of our Five Elements Sect's Five Peaks battle, he should be disqualified from continuing to participate in the Five Peaks battle." As soon as Cha Bai said this, it attracted the attention of many Five Elements sect disciples. "It seems my eyesight is still pretty good. I can tell Duan Tian used an external force. Huh, didn't I remind you of that?" The scene became completely lively, and many people thought that Duan Tian would be disqualified at this moment. Duan Tian just passed Nangong. He almost brushed past Nangong Yi's surging aqua blue power, and a portion of the gentle yet vast aqua blue power mercilessly surged into his body. It was Nangong Yi's full force strikes residual power, which Duan Tian utilized as for the purpose of utilizing it. It was naturally the same as when he forcibly broke through by using Qi Feng's power to activate the potent medicinal effects of the Nirvana pill during the 10 Dynasties martial arts competition. This time, Duan Tian intended to repeat the trick, using Nangong Yi's power to help him achieve a breakthrough. Of course, with his current strength, he dared not confront Nangong Yi head-on. Otherwise, with Nangong Yi's power, which was comparable to that of 190 ancient horned dragons, he could easily be severely injured, let alone use Nangong Yi's power to break through. Even if he used his full strength, including the other 3 low-level profound meanings, without a spirit weapon, his power would only be comparable to that of 130 ancient horned dragons. Compared to Nangong Yi's power, it was completely on a different level. Therefore, he could only outsmart him. He moved away from Nangong Yi's main attack, then brushed past Nangong Yi's attack, allowing the residual power of Nangong Yi's attack to surge into his body, helping him to break through to this moment. His cultivation was only one step away from breaking through to the Void Prying Stage 7th level. As long as he broke through to the Void Prying Stage 7th level, his spiritual power would also advance to the Void Prying Stage 8th level. At that time, defeating Nangong Yi would not be difficult, because Nangong Yi was an inscription master, and their spiritual power levels were both at the Void Prying Stage 7th level. His soul skill would not affect Nangong Yi, but if his spiritual power could reach the Void Prying Stage 8th level, even if Nangong Yi was an inscription master, he would not be able to shake his spiritual power or destroy the illusionary space he constructed with his soul skill. Once Nangong Yi was trapped in his illusionary space, he would inevitably become a fish on his chopping board. However, imagination is beautiful, but reality is cruel. No matter how Duan Tian used Nangong Yi's power, until his meridians were on the verge of collapsing, the medicinal power of the Nirvana pill remained unresponsive. It seems that because I used the same method to activate the potent medicinal effects of the Nirvana pill last time, this time, it has adapted and no longer feels a sense of crisis. Duan Tian gave a bitter smile. This is the same principle as the story of the boy who cried wolf, once or twice. You can deceive people, but the third time, no one will fall for it again. Sectmaster, Mu Feng's Duan Tian is using an external force. I, Cha Bai, the peak master of Hua Feng, demand that his qualification to continue participating in the Five Peaks battle be immediately revoked. Hua Feng's peak master Cha Bai, seeing Guochong's inaction, spoke loudly again. Towards the end, he couldn't help but feel a bit indignant. You can't cover for him. Whoosh, as soon as Cha Bai said this, the entire audience was in an uproar. Most people's gazes fell on Cha Bai. Cha Bai, the peak master of Hua Feng, openly questioned their Five Elements sect master for covering for a Mu Feng disciple. Finally, Guochong reacted, glancing faintly at Cha Bai. Peak master Cha Bai, Duan Ling Tian did not use any external force. He is currently using his own spiritual power to create an illusion. If you doubt my words, you can ask Peak Master Tian Gu whether what I said is true or false. He is an inscription master and can fully confirm whether Duan Ling Tian is using external force. Towards the end, Guochang's tone carried a hint of impatience. Before Cha Bai could even ask Tian Gu already spoke. The sect master is right. Duan Ling Tian did not use any external force. Currently, he is using his own spiritual power to employ a soul skill-like method, creating an illusion that can affect Nangong Yi. Actually, even if Tian Gu hadn't said anything, Cha Bai had already realized that what Guochong said was likely true, because Guochong had no reason to help Duan Ling Tian. Currently, Duan Ling Tian was fighting against Guochong's direct disciple. If he won, it would be Jin Feng, personally overseen by Guochong, the Five Elements sect master, who would suffer the loss. Soul skill. As soon as Tian Gu finished speaking, there was an uproar around them. Isn't that a method that only special demonic beasts can use? Human martial artists, unless they are martial emperor powerhouses. Otherwise, it's impossible to use spiritual power to fight. Could Duan Ling Tian be a demon? Many Five Elements sect disciples discussed animatedly, completely boiling over. Duan Ling Tian is not a demon. Seeing a group of Five Elements sect disciples speculating that Duan Ling Tian was a demon, Tian Gu continued. According to my guess, Duan Ling Tian should be an anomaly. What he is displaying is a unique, innate divine ability. Innate divine ability. As soon as Tian Gu said this, the entire scene fell silent. Innate divine ability? Anomaly. Cha Bai's pupils contracted, and his face turned ugly. Hu Fei, standing beside Cha Bai, looked gloomy. He had heard of both abnormalities and innate abilities and knew what those terms implied. This Duan Ling Tian, he's an anomaly? Hu Fei's eyes flickered with cold, sinister light as he stared intently at Duan Ling Tian. So, from the very beginning, it was him who played me for a fool in front of everyone and made me lose all face. Hu Fei was furious to the extreme, wishing he could tear Duan Ling Tian to shreds and scatter his ashes. But he also knew that Duan Ling Tian's innate ability was something he couldn't contend with. Duan Ling Tian, you're just born lucky. If you weren't an anomaly, if you didn't have innate abilities in front of me, you'd be nothing but an ant. Hu Fei roared inwardly. Besides anger, there was also a hint of jealousy in his heart, jealousy towards Duan Ling Tian. This anomaly. Anomalies with innate abilities were also known as darlings of heaven on the Cloud Continent. Their talents and methods were enough to make anyone envious. Jealous and hateful, an anomaly. Many Five Element sect disciples who had heard of anomalies fixed their gazes on Duan Ling Tian. Their eyes filled with fervent heat. Those Five Element sect disciples who initially didn't know what an anomaly was, after hearing explanations from those around them, also looked at Duan Ling Tian with glowing eyes, as if they had seen something rare and extraordinary. Of course, many people remained calm, such as the Five Element sect leader, Guochong, and his direct disciple, Nangong Chun. Additionally, everyone from Wood Peak, including Wood Peak Master Chiyu, looked calm, their expressions unchanged. It seems Chiyu already knew Duan Ling Tian was an anomaly. Water Peak Master Yu Feng's eyes flashed, a look of apprehension on her face. Now, she finally understood why Duan Ling Tian was considered Wood Peak's trump card. It turned out that Duan Ling Tian was not a pure human. Half of his bloodline was demon. He was an anomaly, an existence between human and demon. There were two types of anomalies. Point 1. Extremely mediocre. Point 2. Exceptionally gifted. Duan Ling Tian was clearly the latter. It's time to end this. After trying for a long time and realizing that Nangong Yi's power couldn't help him break through, Duan Ling Tian sighed. He casually dodged behind Nangong Yi and threw a punch. Boom. Nangong Yi was sent flying like an arrow shot from a bowstring, only stopping when he was far away. A striking streak of blood appeared at the corner of his mouth. It seems I still lost. Although he was in the illusory space constructed by Duan Ling Tian's spiritual energy, Nangong Yi made no further moves, standing there with a wry smile. that he had clearly conceded defeat. Seeing this, Duan Ling Tian hastily withdrew his soul skill, Thousand Illusions, and the illusory space shattered and then completely disappeared. The spectators weren't surprised by this outcome because they already knew Duan Ling Tian was an anomaly and couldn't be judged by normal standards. Senior brother E ultimately lost. There's no choice. Facing an anomaly like Duan Ling Tian, it's hard for senior brother E not to lose. If Duan Ling Tian didn't use that innate ability, he definitely wouldn't be senior brother Yi's opponent. Innate ability is inherently Duan Ling Tian's method. Why shouldn't he use it? What you're saying is a bit biased. The surrounding five-element sect disciples sighed. Many felt it was unfair to Nangong Yi, believing Duan Ling Tian's victory was somewhat dishonorable. However, many also supported Duan Ling Tian. After all, it was Duan Ling Tian's innate ability as an anomaly, and no one had the right to restrict his use of it. Regardless, Duan Ling Tian's innate ability was not considered external force. Therefore, his defeat of Nangong Yi did not violate the rules of the Five Peaks battle. After defeating Nangong Yi, Duan Ling Tian temporarily held the first place in the Five Peaks battle. Nangong Yi was temporarily in second place. Nangong Chun was temporarily in third place. And so on. Those behind each moved down one rank. Does anyone have any objections to the current ranking? If so, you can challenge the person ahead of you. Once you succeed in the challenge, you can take their place. At this moment, Guochong, the sect leader of the Five-Element sect, spoke up. Hearing Guochong's words, many people sighed. It seems the first place in today's Five Peaks battle individual competition is destined to be taken by Wood Peaks Duan Ling Tian. Not just the individual competition. With Duan Ling Tian's mysterious and unpredictable innate ability, even the first place in the team competition will likely be taken by Wood Peak. That's right. Whether it's senior brother E or senior brother Hu Fei, both are at the void prying stage 7th level. Even they couldn't resist Duan Ling Tian's innate ability. So senior brother Chun, who is also at the void prying stage 7th level, probably can't either. This time, Wood Peak is going to make a huge splash. In the history of our Five-Element sect, the first place in the Five Peaks battle has seemingly never been won by any peak other than Metal Peak. This time, Wood Peak is going to create a legend, and the one creating this legend is Wood Peak's Duan Ling Tian. The disciples of Wood Peak were all beaming with pride, while the disciples of the other four peaks sighed that today's outcome was beyond their expectations. Whoosh. However, a sudden gust of wind silenced the discussions among the Five-Element sect disciples. Senior brother Chun. Many Five-Element sect disciples couldn't help but narrow their pupils as they watched the blue figure soar into the sky and stand there. Senior brother Chun is temporarily ranked third in the Five Peaks battle. Because he conceded to senior brother E at the very beginning, he cannot challenge senior brother E. Is his target Duan Ling Tian? That's the only possibility. But Duan Ling Tian is an anomaly with innate abilities. Even senior brother E lost to him. Senior brother Chun probably isn't his match, is he? I don't know. For a moment, many Five-Element sect disciples looked at Nangong Chun with confusion. Duan Ling Tian. Nangong Chun rarely spoke, and his voice was cold. Duan Ling Tian was not surprised by Nangong Chun's challenge. His eyes narrowed, and he flew out. Although he knew that Nangong Chen's spiritual energy was enough to counter his soul skill, Thousand Illusions, he still didn't concede because he had a new idea, allowing the opponent's elemental energy to surge into his body. The medicinal power of the Nirvana pill showed no reaction. All of this was because the Nirvana pill had encountered similar situations before, thus developing a certain immunity. But what about spiritual energy? What if he guided Nangong Chen's spiritual energy to pierce his soul, making his spirit tense and creating another kind of sense of crisis? At that time, would the medicinal power of the Nirvana pill still stand idly by? This was Duan Ling Tian's current idea. It must be said that Duan Ling Tian's idea was extremely audacious. If he made even one mistake, his soul could be severely injured or even completely crippled, endangering his life. And no pain, no gain. Duan Ling Tian, facing off against Nangong Chun, had a stern gaze and made up his mind as long as he could force the nirvana pill to act again. Breaking through to the void-prying stage 7th level would be a simple matter, achievable in an instant. In the distance, Guochong, the sect leader of the Five-Element sect, watched the two confronting each other with a calm gaze. For some reason, he felt an unexplainable worry in his heart. Perhaps it was because Nangong Chun had previously said he only had 90% confidence in defeating Duan Ling Tian. Father, isn't Nangong Chun just asking for humiliation? On Earth Peak's side, Tianjin frowned. No. Tiangu shook his head and said with a solemn expression, "Don't forget, Nangong Chun, like me, is an inscription master. Based on my previous probing of Duan Ling Tian's spiritual energy, his spiritual energy should not exceed Nangong Chen's." So what? Tianjun was puzzled. You still don't understand? As long as Duan Ling Tian's spiritual energy doesn't exceed Nangong Chen's, even if he uses his innate ability, Nangong Chun can use his spiritual energy to break it. Tiangu slowly said, if Duan Ling Tian doesn't have his innate ability to rely on, do you think he would be Nangong Chen's opponent? Then this Duan Ling Tian is going to be in trouble, isn't he? Tianjin gasped. As long as there are no surprises, this Duan Ling Tian is bound to lose. Our Five-Element sect's legend of Metal Peak first will also continue. Tiangu said, sharing Tiangu's thoughts were some inscription masters present. These inscription masters included some elders and some disciples from various peaks. They all knew that Nangong Chun was an inscription master. It seems that Duan Ling Tian's spiritual energy is not superior to Nangong Chen's. Otherwise, Nangong Chun would definitely not go up there to humiliate himself. Duan Ling Tian's spiritual energy should be exactly at the void-prying stage 7th level. That's why Nangong Yi and Hu Fei lost to him. Nangong Chun is not afraid of the innate ability displayed by a void-prying stage 7th level spiritual energy. Many Five-Element sect elders who were inscription masters discussed animatedly their words, spread by the Five-Element sect disciples who were inscription masters, instantly enlightened many confused Five-Element sect disciples. So senior brother Chen isn't afraid of Duan Ling Tian's innate ability. Without innate ability to rely on, isn't this Duan Ling Tian just fish on senior brother Chen's chopping block to be carved up at will? Metal Peak, it truly is Metal Peak. No other peak can take away Metal Peak's first place honor. The Five-Element sect disciples discussed animatedly, their voices carrying to the ears of the Wood Peak members. Below, Wood Peak Master Chiyu, Yang Ling, Kuzheng, and Shun Wei all had grave expressions. Duan Ling Tian, is what they're saying true? Can that Nangong Chun really break your innate ability? Shun Wei couldn't help but ask, using elemental energy to transmit his voice. Duan Ling Tian, is your spiritual energy level at the void-prying stage 7th level? Yang Ling and Kuzheng also couldn't help but ask. Duan Ling Tian responded to their questions. Immediately, the three showed wry smiles. Soon, Mu Peak Master Chiyu also learned from Yang Ling and the two others that Duan Ling Tian's innate ability couldn't deal with Nangong Chun. Although he was a little disappointed, he didn't feel any sense of loss. Duan Ling Tian, if it really doesn't work, just concede. This time, for our Mu Peak to rank second in the Five Peaks battle. I'm already quite surprised. Chiyu's eyebrows twitched slightly as he transmitted his voice to Duan Ling Tian, using his Yuan force. Peak Master, don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Duan Ling Tian replied. Chiyu nodded, not saying anything more, but his gaze remained fixed on Nangong Chun. If he saw Nangong Chen's attack potentially crippling or even killing Duan Ling Tian, he would intervene immediately to save him. Duan Ling Tian was the future of their Mu Peak, and he could not be lost. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Duan Ling Tian and Nangong Chun stood facing each other. Unless there's an unforeseen circumstance, you are not my match. Facing Duan Ling Tian, Nangong Chun spoke more than usual, a rare occurrence. But his expression remained cold and stern, his eyes calmly fixed on Duan Ling Tian, devoid of any emotion. You also said, That's unless there's an unforeseen circumstance. Perhaps an unforeseen circumstance might just happen inadvertently. Duan Ling Tian looked at Nangong Chun just as calmly, speaking indifferently. I'll be watching. Nangong Chen's dull eyes, for once, lit up with a flicker of brilliance. 1,000 illusions. As soon as Nangong Chen finished speaking, a dark light flickered in Duan Ling Tian's eyes, and his vast spiritual energy pierced into the soul imprint deep within his soul. Unleashing his soul skill, a fantasy space quietly appeared, centered around Duan Ling Tian, covering an area of 100 meters, enveloping Nangong Chun within it. Nangong Chun seemed to sense something, his eyebrow raising. Immediately after, a sharp and invisible spiritual energy extended from his body and slammed fiercely into the illusion space, shattering it with ease. It's here. Duan Ling Tian's eyes narrowed, sensing Nangong Chen's spiritual energy. Unfortunately, just as he was about to make his next move, Nangong Chen's spiritual energy retracted, leaving him no time to utilize it. 1,000 illusions. For a moment, Duan Ling Tian could only unleash his soul skill again. The illusion space reappeared as Nangong Chen's spiritual energy swept out. The illusion space was shattered once more. This time, it was a little closer to Duan Ling Tian's goal, but he still failed to successfully draw in Nangong Chen's spiritual energy, leaving Duan Ling Tian feeling somewhat helpless. But he did not give up. 1,000 illusions. 1,000 illusions. 1,000 illusions. His spiritual energy continuously pierced into the soul imprint deep within his soul, unleashing soul skills again and again, constructing illusion spaces. It's useless. Facing Duan Ling Tian's illusion spaces, Nangong Chun felt no pressure. His spiritual energy extended out repeatedly, easily destroying the illusion spaces Duan Ling Tian constructed. One by one, the illusion spaces were shattered, and Nangong Chen's spiritual energy, under Duan Ling Tian's deliberate guidance, drew closer and closer to him. The group of 5 Elements sect disciples watching were all dumbfounded. They only saw Duan Ling Tian and Nangong Chun standing there staring at each other, not seeing any movements from either of them. Now, suddenly hearing Nangong Chen's words, they couldn't help but be stunned. Could it be that Senior Brother Chun and Duan Ling Tian have already started fighting? Probably. They must be fighting with spiritual energy. Spiritual energy is invisible, so we can't see anything. The group of 5 Elements sect disciples discussed amongst themselves, and although they all found it a bit uninteresting, they still stared at the two without blinking. They all wanted to know who would emerge victorious in the end. Meanwhile, Tian Gu and others, being inscription masters, were now frowning deeply. They could sense that Duan Ling Tian was continuously constructing illusion spaces, and Nangong Chun was continuously destroying the illusion spaces Duan Ling Tian constructed. This made them feel a little strange. What was the point of Duan Ling Tian doing this? If this continued, Duan Ling Tian's spiritual energy would likely be depleted very quickly, while Nangong Chen's spiritual energy consumption was far less than his and would not be affected. Now, Duan Ling Tian's eyes suddenly lit up. His extended spiritual energy finally intercepted a portion of Nangong Chen's spiritual energy, carrying it back and rushing straight into the depths of his own mind. Towards his soul, Nangong Chen's spiritual energy, though no longer under his control, still charged wildly and uncontrollably upon entering an unfamiliar place. At the same time, Duan Ling Tian felt a dizzying headache. That spiritual energy from Nangong Chen almost burst his head. A sense of crisis instantly spread throughout Duan Ling Tian's entire body. Even the spiritual energy deep within Duan Ling Tian's soul became agitated and extremely uneasy. Nirvana pill. At this moment, Duan Ling Tian didn't pay attention to these, but instead shifted his focus to the medicinal power of the Nirvana pill lurking deep in his dantian, wanting to know if it showed any movement at this moment. Even the Yuan force within Duan Ling Tian's body became agitated, seemingly sensing a great crisis. But they had no way to resist it. The spiritual energy from Nangong Chun rampaged through Duan Ling Tian's mind, like a wild bird trapped in a cage, yearning to escape. Although Duan Ling Tian could suppress this spiritual energy with his own, he temporarily chose not to, because once he did, his plan would fail completely. It hurts. It hurts so much. At this moment, Duan Ling Tian's body trembled violently, and cold sweat poured down his forehead, quickly drenching him. Seeing this, Nangong Chun was stunned. The onlookers were also stunned. What on earth was happening? What was happening to Duan Ling Tian? Asterisk staring at Duan Ling Tian, whose condition seemed off. Their faces were filled with confusion. They didn't know that Duan Ling Tian was currently enduring an agony that ordinary people couldn't bear, and his soul could be shattered at any moment. Once his soul scattered, it meant that his entire being would become a soulless husk. Even if the reincarnation Martial Emperor were alive and knew what Duan Ling Tian was doing now, he would probably scold him as a madman. Success. It felt like only an instant, yet also like a century. A flash of inspiration struck Duan Ling Tian's mind. He seemed to realize something, and his emotions surged excitedly at the same time. The medicinal power of the nirvana pill deep within his dantian rapidly surged out, merging with his yuan force and propelling it to move like lightning. Asterisk 9 Dragon War Sovereign Technique, Sword Dragon Transformation. Without any hesitation, Duan Ling Tian hastily activated his cultivation method, guiding this lightning-like yuan force to charge towards the bottleneck leading to the 7th level of the void prying stage. You've been bouncing around for a while now. Now perish. Asterisk at the same time, Duan Ling Tian, whose head was throbbing, controlled the spiritual energy that had been accumulating, sweeping it out and instantly enveloping the spiritual energy originating from Nangong Chun. Boom. The spiritual energy sharply contracted, instantly annihilating Nangong Chun's spiritual energy completely. Standing far away, Nangong Chun, who had been planning to make a move, seemed to sense something and suddenly stopped, his brows furrowing. At this moment, he only felt a stinging pain deep within his soul. But the pain disappeared in an instant, as if it had never appeared. What's going on? Nangong Chen's eyebrows twitched slightly. He glanced at Duan Ling Tian in the distance, whose body had stopped trembling, whose complexion had returned to normal, and whose cold sweat had ceased. And he felt that this matter might be related to Duan Ling Tian. Boom. At the same time, the yuan force within Duan Ling Tian's body, propelled by the potent medicinal power of the nirvana pill, surged through the bottleneck, leading to the 7th level of the void prying stage with overwhelming force. After breaking through the bottleneck, the yuan force within Duan Ling Tian's body underwent a tremendous transformation. This change was like a qualitative transformation, a qualitative sublimation. Compared to the previous 2 cultivation breakthroughs, it was simply a world of difference. I've broken through. Feeling the surging yuan force after the transformation, Duan Ling Tian's heart was stirred. It hasn't stopped yet. Soon, Duan Ling Tian discovered that the medicinal power of the nirvana pill, after propelling the yuan force to break through the bottleneck leading to the 7th level of the void prying stage, did not stop but continued to surge forward with great momentum. It wasn't until the bottleneck leading to the 8th level of the void prying stage appeared that the medicinal power of the nirvana pill slowed down, left the yuan force, and returned to his dantian. The yuan force also stopped its agitation and completely calmed down. This time I really went all out. Just one step away from breaking through to the 8th level of the void prying stage. Duan Ling Tian was stunned for a moment, then couldn't help but laugh. Fortune favors the bold. This saying is absolutely true. With such progress in cultivation, the suffering earlier wasn't in vain. Recalling the scene just now, Duan Ling Tian still felt a lingering fear at that moment. The spiritual energy from Nangong Chun was just a hair's breadth away from bursting his head and crushing his soul, effectively killing him. Even now, thinking about it, Duan Ling Tian still felt a chill down his spine and broke out in a cold sweat. Suddenly, Duan Ling Tian seemed to sense something, and his expression changed slightly. When he came back to his senses, he found that Nangong Chun was already rapidly approaching him. Accompanying Nangong Chun was a vast, earthy yellow power coiling around his body, making him appear like a colossal earth beast. The colossal earth beast with the phantom of 190 ancient horned dragons above its head, lunged forward like lightning, its maw wide open, as if to swallow Duan Ling Tian whole. 1,000 illusions. Seeing Nangong Chun, enveloped in earthy yellow power, his gaze turning cold, Duan Ling Tian knew he was about to attack. He hastily used his Yuan force to activate his soul skill, constructing an illusion space that enveloped the area. Immediately after, he transformed into a gust of wind, quickly moving aside. Just as Duan Ling Tian moved away, boom. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Nangong Chun stared intently at the empty space where Duan Ling Tian had just stood, and punched out. The punch landed in the empty void, like a stone dropping into a calm lake, stirring up ripples that spread in all directions. Asterisk at the same time. Vast and majestic gales swept out from Nangong Chen's fist, causing the robes of the spectators to flutter. Some 5-element sect disciples with lower cultivation were blown back a few steps, their eyes involuntarily narrowing. Boom. Before anyone could react, they saw Duan Ling Tian, who had already moved to the side, strike like lightning, landing a palm on Nangong Chen's back and sending him flying. After being sent flying, Nangong Chen's body trembled, and he spat out a mouthful of clotted blood with a wah sound, his face turning extremely pale. Whoosh. Seeing this, the surrounding crowd erupted in an uproar. It seems senior brother Chun didn't even see Duan Ling Tian move to the side, let alone notice him attacking from behind. It looks like senior brother Chun was also affected by Duan Ling Tian's innate ability. Clearly, a group of 5-element sect disciples' expressions turned incredibly solemn. This Duan Ling Tian broke through. Two Feng's peak master, Tian Gu, twitched his mouth, his face filled with shock. Just now, Duan Ling Tian had repeatedly used his spiritual energy to construct a fantasy realm space. But it was shattered by Nangong Chen's spiritual energy. He had sensed it clearly from beginning to end. But just now, when Duan Ling Tian once again constructed a fantasy realm space with his spiritual energy, sensed that Duan Ling Tian's spiritual energy had advanced by an entire level. Thus, Nangong Chun had no way of discovering the fantasy realm space constructed by Duan Ling Tian, let alone shattering it with his spiritual energy. This discovery was also made by many 5-element sect elders who were inscription masters, as they discussed. The news of Duan Ling Tian's breakthrough reached the ears of others, and before long, everyone knew what had just happened. Damn it, this Duan Ling Tian actually broke through. Hu Fei stared at Duan Ling Tian with cold eyes, his face incredibly gloomy. He had originally thought Duan Ling Tian would lose to Nangong Chun, but he never expected Duan Ling Tian to achieve a breakthrough at the critical moment and overpower Nangong Chun in one fell swoop. Chinter's worries were right. This Duan Ling Tian truly cannot be viewed with common sense. The 5-element sect master, Guo sighed, but he showed no displeasure. It was as if Jin Feng not winning first place in the 5 Peaks competition had no significant impact on him. This Duan Ling Tian is indeed very strong. Nangong, standing to the side, had a very solemn expression, then frowned. However, when he attacked just now, the power contained in his vital energy seemed far less than that of the void prying realm 8th level, more like it was on par with mine. His cultivation just broke through to the void prying realm 7th level. As for his spiritual energy, it should be 1 level higher than his cultivation. Guo Chang's eyes flickered as he murmured, "If I'm not mistaken, he must have consumed some spirit fruit that enhances the soul, causing his spiritual energy to be 1 level higher than his cultivation. So it's void prying realm 8th level spiritual energy. No wonder." Nangong gasped in cold air upon hearing this. Huh. Duan Ling Tian, well done. Seeing Duan Ling Tian severely injure Nangong Chun, clearly securing the final victory, Huang Denyo laughed heartily and shouted loudly. Chiyu, Yongling, and Kuzhang's eyes all lit up. They never expected Duan Ling Tian to achieve a breakthrough at the critical moment and defeat Nangong Chun in one go. While this surprised them, they couldn't help but feel a surge of joy. You broke through. Just then, Nangong Chun, still within the fantasy realm space, After being injured, made no further movements, standing in midair and slowly asking. Clearly, Nangongchun had also realized that he was deeply trapped in a fantasy realm space. With a thought, Duan Ling Tian withdrew his soul skill Thousand Illusions, looked at Nangongchun, and said indifferently, "By luck. Whether it's by luck or not, you've won." After the fantasy realm space disappeared, Nangongchun looked at Duan Ling Tian and said with a serious expression, without waiting for Duan Ling Tian's response. Nangongchun flashed back to Guocheng's side, bowed slightly to Guocheng. "This disciple has failed to live up to expectations. I asked for master's punishment. You did your best. It's just that your opponent was too strong." Guocheng shook his head, his gaze falling on Duan Ling Tian, and smiled slightly. "Duan Ling Tian, you are very good. With you, Mu Feng will surely rise again. I look forward to it. Sect Master overpraises me." Duan Ling Tian responded with a smile. With his current cultivation, he dared not show any disrespect to the five-element sect master. "Chiyu, your Mu Feng is in luck." Guocheng then looked at Chiyu and said with a smile. Upon hearing this, Chiyu rarely showed a brilliant smile on his face. "I never expected that Duan Ling Tian of Mu Feng would win first place in the individual competition of the Five Peaks competition. With his innate ability, he can completely win first place in the team competition as well. It seems that this time, Mu Feng will rank before Jin Feng, becoming our five-element sect's #1 peak." The five-element sect's #1 peak has always been Jin Feng's glory. This time, because of Duan Ling Tian, it is about to change hands. The sect resources that the five-element sect's #1 peak can obtain are incomparable to what the other four peaks can get. For the next 3 years, Mu Feng can fully utilize those sect resources to rise again. Aside from the Mu Feng disciples, the disciples of the other four peaks exclaimed in admiration. Each Mu Feng disciple's face was filled with indescribable excitement, their gazes fixed on Duan Ling Tian. With deep gratitude clearly visible in their eyes, they knew that Mu Feng being able to become the five-element sect's #1 peak was all thanks to Duan Ling Tian alone. Without Duan Ling Tian, Mu Feng would not have achieved this moment of glory. Both Hu Feng's peak master, Cha Bai, and his direct disciple, Hu Fei, had extremely ugly expressions, especially Hu Fei. 10 years ago, the reason he betrayed Mu Feng and his first master, Yang Ling, was not only because he couldn't resist the temptation of what Cha Bai promised. More importantly, he wanted to join Hua Feng, which was then the second strongest peak of the five-element sect, and use Hua Feng's influence to soar to great heights. Over the years, he had indeed achieved this, becoming the foremost among the current generation of young disciples in Hua Feng. However, today, the Mu Feng he betrayed 10 years ago had received the honor of five-element sect's #1 peak. This honor was like a resounding slap across his face, filling him with shame and indignation. Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian, it's all because of you. It's all because of you. If it weren't for you, how could Mu Feng have received such an honor? If it weren't for you, how could I have lost all face in front of everyone? Hu Fei's eyes were filled with extreme coldness, staring directly at the purple figure in the distance, the killing intent emanating from him seeming to condense into a sharp arrow shot out. Duan Ling Tian, who was about to return to the side of the Mu Feng group, had just turned around when he sensed a cold, killing intent lock onto him. Immediately, he couldn't help but look towards the source of the killing intent. With just one glance, he saw the red-clothed youth whose eyes were filled with killing intent, wishing to cut him into 1,000 pieces. Hu Fei, the direct disciple of Hua Feng's peak master. This Hu Fei, if I get the chance, I must kill him. Otherwise, he will definitely become another troublesome character like Zishang. Duan Ling Tian's eyes glinted with killing intent, making a silent resolve that in his life, there were few things he regretted. And the most memorable was not killing Zishang when he was at the peak of Tianshu Peak of the Seven-Star Sword Sect in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. At that time, with his soul skill, 1,000 Illusions, killing Zishang would have been effortless. It was precisely because Zishang survived that he became a major hidden danger, and last time even led people from Tsang Wolf Fort to hunt him down. attempting to seize the demon's sealing tablet from his hands. Zishang, our scores will be settled slowly in the secret treasure left by that Martial Emperor expert. This time, I will definitely kill you without holding back. Thinking of Zishang, Duan Ling Tian's killing intent grew even stronger. After regaining his composure, Duan Ling Tian returned to the side of the Move Phone group, led by Peak Master Chiyu. As soon as he returned, he was met with enthusiastic greetings. Duan Ling Tian, you're too terrifying. Even the two most outstanding young people of the current generation in the Five-Element sect were defeated by you. I, Huang Denyo, admire you. Huang Denyo gave Duan Ling Tian a thumbs up and praised him. Junior brother Ku, this time our Move Phone owes you a lot. If you hadn't brought back Duan Ling Tian and Huang Denyo, we would probably have been at the bottom again this time. Yang Ling said to Kuzhang. I also didn't expect that going to Flowing Cloud Town with Shen Wei would lead me to meet Duan Ling Tian. Regardless, this is our Mu Fang's and Duan Ling Tian's destiny, Kuzhang said with a smile. Shen Wei, who was beside them, nodded in agreement and at the same time gave Duan Ling Tian a thumbs up. Duan Ling Tian, my previous promise to you is always valid. As long as it is within my power and does not endanger the Five-Element sect, I can grant you one request. Any request? Chi Yu looked at Duan Ling Tian and said with a slight smile, his tone becoming a few shades heavier towards the end. Hearing Chi Yu's words, Yang Ling and the other three were all surprised. They never expected that Chi Yu, the peak master of Mu Feng and the second strongest person in the Five-Element sect, would make such a promise to Duan Ling Tian. Thank you, Peak Master. Duan Ling Tian's eyes lit up. He had personally witnessed Chi Yu's strength. Huafeng's Peak Master, Cha Bai, had no power to resist in front of Chi Yu. The promise of such a powerful individual was undoubtedly priceless to him at this moment. Although Duan Ling Tian had returned, most of the surrounding gazes were still fixed on him, paying their respects to him. The first place in the individual competition of the Five Peaks competition. This Duan Ling Tian, who looks younger than Senior Brother Chun and Senior Brother Yi, was actually able to defeat Senior Brother Yi and Senior Brother Chun consecutively. It's truly astonishing. Don't forget, he's not an ordinary human. He has the blood of a demon flowing in him. At this point, Duan Ling Tian also became the focus of discussion among the Five-Element sect disciples. It wasn't until Sect Master Guochang's booming voice rang out that they all quieted down, their gazes simultaneously converging on Guochang. The individual competition is over. Now, for the team competition. Guochang announced loudly. In team battles, the two representatives from each peak joined forces to fight against the representatives from the other four peaks. In a 2-on-2 format, compared to individual battles, team battles are more like a formality. In would peak. Duan Ling Tian and Huang Denyo teamed up. Duan Ling Tian was responsible for confusing opponents with his illusionary space, while Huang Denyo handled the attacks, easily defeating the Nangong brothers from Gold Peak. Awesome. Huang Denyo, who had injured the Nangong brothers in a few moves, laughed heartily, striking a pose that suggested he was borrowing the tiger's prestige. That no one was surprised by this result. After all, they already knew how terrifying Duan Ling Tian's innate ability was. After defeating the Nangong brothers from Gold Peak, the other three peaks dared not engage in team battles with Wood Peak, knowing that going up would only lead to abuse. So they decided to conserve their strength. Fire Peak Master Cha Bai and his direct disciple Hu Fei, though unwilling, also dared not contend with the rising Wood Peak. Since that's the case, Wood Peak wins first place in the team battles. Combining Wood Peak's performance in the individual battles, Wood Peak has won first place in our Five-Element sect's Five Peaks battle this time, and for the next 3 years will be our Five-Element sect's first peak. The first peak of the Five-Element sect. Guochong spoke slowly, his words natural and uninhibited. However, the disciples of Gold Peak sighed one after another. Their former glory had been snatched away by Wood Peak overnight, leaving a bitter taste in their mouths. Wood Peak, a peak that had been at the bottom for over 20 years, had risen dramatically, soaring to the heavens, which was shocking to behold. Duan Ling Tian's innate ability helped Wood Peak reach the top in one fell swoop. With him, Wood Peak's rise was inevitable. This was clear to everyone present from the Five Elements sect. Following this, in front of the Nangong brothers from Gold Peak, the other three peaks directly conceded, making Gold Peak the second peak after Wood Peak, and for the next 3 years. The second peak of the Five Elements sect, Duan Ling Tian. 3 years from today, our Gold Peak will definitely reclaim the glory of being the first peak of the Five Elements sect. Nangong Yi's gaze swept across the sky, landing on Duan Ling Tian, and he declared loudly that a powerful confidence emanated from Nangong Yi, impressing many Five Elements sect disciples present. As expected of senior brother Yi, neither arrogant in victory nor discouraged in defeat. With senior brother Yi and senior brother Chun in Gold Peak, they will certainly reclaim the honor of first peak for Gold Peak sooner or later. That Duan Ling Tian, relying on his innate ability, is not following the righteous path. Many disciples from the other 4 peaks commented. Of course, their words were refuted by the Wood Peak disciples. Humph. What do you mean, not following the righteous path? Innate ability is senior brother Ling Tian's method, something you wish you had, but don't. Senior brother Ling Tian is younger than the Nangong brothers, and if he can help our Wood Peak win first place this time, he can naturally do so 3 years from now too. I have faith in senior brother Ling Tian. Hearing Nangong Yi's words and seeing the enthusiasm of the Wood Peak disciples, Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but smile wryly to himself. 3 years later? By then, he probably wouldn't be in the Five Elements sect anymore. Next, the remaining 3 peaks, Fire Peak, Water Peak, and Earth Peak, would determine the final 3 rankings of the team battle, with Hu Fei, a void interpretation stage 7th level martial artist, in Fire Peak. They, without any surprise, secured 3rd place. And combining their individual battle results, Fire Peak would be the 3rd peak of the Five Elements sect for the next 3 years. Following that, Water Peak and Earth Peak battled. Among Water Peak's 2 female disciples, Tan Huan was the strongest. On Earth Peak's side, Tian Jun was the strongest. In the individual battle, Tan Huan had a slight edge over Tian Jun. Yet, even so, she dared not be careless in this battle, proceeding cautiously, first using agile movement martial skills to evade Tian Jun, then injuring the other Earth Peak disciple, and finally narrowly defeating Tian Jun. It's over. Although Tian Jun was mentally prepared at the moment of defeat, he couldn't help but feel a little disheartened. Thank you for the match. Tan Huan nodded to Tian Jun. The final rankings for the team battle were also out. Water Peak, 4th, * combining their individual battle results. Water Peak became the 4th peak of the Five Elements sect for the next 3 years. Earth Peak came in last, becoming the 5th peak of the Five Elements sect. Fellow senior and junior brothers and sisters, Tian Jun, was useless, and I apologize to you all. After his defeat, Tian Jun bowed to many Earth Peak disciples, his voice filled with bitterness. Senior brother Tian Jun, you did your best. We all saw it. We fell this time, but we'll get back up in 3 years. It's the same. I have faith in our Earth Peak. The Earth Peak disciples said one after another, their expressions impassioned. Although Earth Peak was at the bottom, their morale remained high, earning the admiration of disciples from the other 4 peaks. Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian. At some point, the Wood Peak disciples began shouting Duan Ling Tian's name loudly, their enthusiasm soaring, their momentum reaching its peak. Duan Ling Tian once again became the focus of everyone's attention. He single-handedly turned the tide, allowing Wood Peak to reach the top and become the 1st peak of the Five Elements sect for the next 3 years. Peak Masters. The 5 peaks battle has concluded. Please arrange the subsequent matters as soon as possible. Guochong, the sect master of the Five Elements sect, looked around at the other 4 peak masters and said loudly, 10 days from now, bring the 2 strongest young generation members from your respective peaks to Gold Peak. At that time, Gold Peak will open the Profound Enlightenment Array to help. The 2 most outstanding young disciples from each peak quickly enhance the concepts they have comprehended. Guochong finished in one breath. Profound Enlightenment Array. When Guochong uttered these words, most Five Elements sect disciples looked puzzled. However, The four peak masters, including with peak master Chiyu, all had their eyes light up, and a hint of excitement appeared between their brows. Profound enlightenment array? Duan Ling Tian initially thought he had misheard. But only after hearing the discussions of the surrounding Five Elements sect disciples did he realize he hadn't. He naturally knew what the profound enlightenment array was. However, he never expected that a mere Five Elements sect would actually possess a profound enlightenment array in the reincarnation Martial Emperor's memories. The profound enlightenment array was something he created himself on Cloud Continent. Logically, only a few forces close to him should know how to set up this inscription array. Duan Ling Tian frowned, feeling a bit confused, logically speaking. Given the preciousness of the profound enlightenment array, those few forces would absolutely not share its setup method with other forces. However, it has been 10,000 years since the reincarnation Martial Emperor's second reincarnation. Perhaps, during these 10,000 years, something happened that caused the setup method of the profound enlightenment array to spread on Cloud Continent. Thinking of this, Duan Ling Tian felt relieved. 10,000 years was enough to change many things. However, thinking of the function of the profound enlightenment array, he couldn't help but feel a little excited. The profound enlightenment array is an inscription array that can help martial artists quickly comprehend concepts and profound truths. Besides a large amount of spirit stones, it also requires a significant consumption of concept fragments and profound truth fragments. Once the profound enlightenment array operates, the concept fragments and profound truth fragments placed within it are heavily consumed, thereby assisting the martial artists inside to quickly comprehend concepts and profound truths. This time, my concepts can undergo a new transformation. With the reincarnation Martial Emperor's understanding of the profound enlightenment array, I can completely use my spiritual power to gain a certain degree of control over the profound enlightenment array and plunder the good fortune of others. Thinking of this, Duan Ling Tian was excited. The profound enlightenment array was originally created by the reincarnation Martial Emperor. Although he passed it on to many people, the one who understood the essence of the profound enlightenment array the most was still the reincarnation Martial Emperor. Having integrated the reincarnation Martial Emperor's memories, he was equivalent to the reincarnation Martial Emperor in the flesh, and it would be an extremely simple matter for him to tamper with the profound enlightenment array. The profound enlightenment array, each time it's activated, consumes a large amount of concept fragments. It seems that for the secret treasure left by that Martial Emperor expert, the Five Elements sect is really going all out. Duan Ling Tian thought to himself, now, I only hope that in the profound enlightenment array opened by Gold Peak 10 days from now, more wind concept, lightning concept, earth concept, and sword concept fragments can be placed. With my understanding of the profound enlightenment array, coupled with my current ability to comprehend two concepts simultaneously, I can greatly enhance all four concepts at once. Duan Ling Tian's eyes flashed with brilliance, his face filled with anticipation. Peak Master, what is that profound enlightenment array? At this moment, Huang Denyo's voice reached Duan Ling Tian's ears. As Huang Denyo was asking, would Peak Master Chiyu? Huang Denyo was clearly like most Five Elements sect disciples, hearing about the profound enlightenment array for the first time. The profound enlightenment array is a type of inscription array. Chiyu paused here and glanced at Duan Ling Tian. Upon seeing Duan Ling Tian look over, he continued. The profound enlightenment array is mainly composed of spirit stones inscribed with inscriptions and some precious special materials. Besides that, the most important thing is to put a large amount of concept fragments into it, because the profound enlightenment array needs to consume concept fragments to help the people inside quickly comprehend concepts. As everyone knows, once a martial artist who has comprehended a concept obtains concept fragments of that concept, their speed of comprehending that concept will advance by leaps and bounds, and the profound enlightenment array can accelerate this speed. As for how fast, to a certain extent, it depends on the comprehension of the person inside. The comprehension of the person entering it will be magnified countless times. The higher the comprehension, the faster the speed of comprehending concepts. Chi Yu explained. Quickly comprehend concepts? Huang Dinyo's eyes lit up. Then, with my 6th level intermediate earth concept that I just comprehended a few days ago, is it possible to comprehend 7th level intermediate earth concept inside? That is natural. As long as your comprehension is high enough, and there are enough earth concept fragments in the profound enlightenment array, let alone comprehending 7th level intermediate earth concept, it's not impossible to comprehend 8th level intermediate earth concept. Chi Yu added. 8th level intermediate earth concept? Huang Dinyo was dumbfounded. Completely dumbfounded. He had only comprehended 6th level intermediate earth concept a few days ago, and 10 days later, he had a chance to comprehend 8th level intermediate earth concept.